today I've got the legendary Brian Kurtz, one of the most successful direct response marketers of all time. I know he'll say he's not, but we're going to talk about the three things that he really were the keys to growing his $150 million business. The problem with the quick hit. We're going to talk about the secret of RFM, which in the concept that made Brian rich slowly. The not so secret 40-40-20 rule. And I think it's absolutely critical to every single person doing marketing. About the best copywriting book ever he had, the number one question that copywriters ask him, that's a signal of a great copywriter, and how he gets 70% open rates, how frequently you should be emailing, and we're going to do a deep dive into AI. All this on the Garlic Marketing Show. But of course, one of the best things that you can be doing is understanding your customer stories. Go to videocasestory.com/finder, where we'll help you find your seven-figure story. All right, let's get started.
Is Gino Wickman. I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world. And Ian did exactly what I hoped. He got me really comfortable with putting videos out to the world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
One of my first 15, I think, guests on the Garlic Marketing Show, and we're now in like up into the 500.
When was that, 1927?
Yeah, it was almost 10 years ago. My good friend Brian Kurtz here, legend. I mean, billions of dollars sold, and he'll be humble about it. You know, and we talk about, he was on Giants of Video, and he's like, I'm not a video guy. I'm like, dude, you had a $500 million infomercial in the early 2000s, which is in these money, it's like $20 billion in 2026 money. But I'm so excited because Brian, like, really is one of the best books out there. Over deliver, but as a student of all of this, of direct response marketing, but marketing in general, so many brilliant ideas. And what's weird about this is I just met Brian for the first time in real life a month ago.
That was fantastic.
And Brian, I'm going to say it right here. Go to briankurtz.net, KURTZ.net, and sign up for his email list to see how email should be done. We were talking about a little bit about how he can improve it. But Brian, thanks for being on. I'm excited to talk to you about this. Last time we talked about direct mail, but I think we should do a revamp into what you feel are the fundamentals of great, successful marketing.
Yeah, I mean, and it hasn't, as I said to you before we turned the camera on, I did try to listen to the interview from 10 years ago to see how timeless or irrelevant it was. And I listened to a little bit of it, and it felt somewhat relevant, but it was more about direct mail. But direct mail is still relevant, whether people believe it or not. So I just wanted to just give a thanks to you, because at that time, 10 years ago, it was shortly after I launched Titans Marketing, after a long career at Boardroom, building, a big business at Boardroom. And I started doing the podcast tour, and you were one of the first ones I was on, and you and a couple other guys and women got me jazzed for what I was doing, because you ask good questions, you're smart, you know what you're doing, and I'm so impressed now that we got to finally meet in person. But we've been following each other and in touch with each other over the last 10 years, and I do think that. I've seen, you have evolved so beautifully, and some people don't. Fortunately, I did. The people I grew up with in the direct mail business in the 1980s and 1990s, I'm sure a lot of your listeners weren't even born.
Yeah.
Now I'm feeling old, but I'm not. Being the oldest person in the room is not the worst thing in the world. But it was amazing, because I just saw people just fall by the wayside as the internet came about for marketing, as email marketing came about, and because they knew one thing, they knew direct mail. And I realized early on that the internet and email marketing was going to be the ultimate direct response marketing medium, just like direct mail was, with an immediate response, with immediate, and I didn't know anything. So
Yeah.
as you said, when you said I'm a student, that warmed my heart because people see me as a teacher or a mentor or just an old guy, spouting off shit, grandpa at the picnic. But I am always a student. I'll be a student till the day I die because there's no other way to be. You got to be a sponge. So given that, I'll answer your question. The fundamentals. I mean, when people think I'm a copywriter. I'm not. I'm not a practicing copywriter. I've worked with the best copywriters who've been alive over the last 50 years. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to be in that position to know every great copywriter who's been alive during my career. And I've worked with most of them.
That's
So
amazing.
that alone is like, a blessing. But when I thought about like copywriters and that, copywriters shouldn't write for food, that's a Dan Kennedy line, you know, you need to be a trusted advisor. You need to be like more complex, have more depth. And when I wrote a blog post that was something like, you may not know it until you see it. You may not know it when you see it, because there was like these elements of like 7 characteristics that every great copywriter, the A-listers, like the top of the game, had in common. And I got them on paper. And number 5 is like a real knowledge of direct response marketing. You don't have to be the expert as a copywriter, but you need to understand the fundamentals or you can't be a great copywriter because the list is more important than your copy. And so, I thought about that. And then in that context, I said, okay, what if at a minimum, and these are the concepts that I'll share with you, at a minimum, what are like the 2 or 3 things that every copywriter and every marketer needs to know in depth? And I did come up with 3 things. One is RFM, Recency Frequency Monetary Value. It is a cornerstone. It's not a rule of thumb. It's basically how consumers behave in the marketplace. And it's based on recency, frequency. And a lot of your listeners, I know you have a sophisticated audience, so I'm sure they know what I'm talking about. But just in case they don't, I've explained it in my book in detail. I didn't invent it. It's been around a long time. But recency is a more recent buyer is going to be worth more than a less recent buyer. A more frequent buyer is going to be worth more than a less frequent buyer. And the people who spend the most money with you will spend more money with you, which was counter to what I thought when I got into the business. I said, that doesn't make sense. If someone just bought from me, they're out of money. They can't buy more. I mean, that's how I was thinking in 1981 or 81. But it's such an important and then combining recency, frequency, and monetary is how we built a $150 million business at Boardroom with regression modeling to show basically who was going to respond to the next offer based on what they responded to previously, recency, frequency, monetary. So that's one concept that will stand the test of time, online, offline, anywhere, even on the moon or Mars. It's always going to be there. The second one is one that everybody knows, but I don't know we pay attention to it enough, is lifetime value. Like, being a one-trick pony, is not the way to do marketing. In fact, my book, Over Deliver, the subtitle is, build a business for a lifetime, playing the long game in direct response marketing. It's a long subtitle, but I needed to do it because Over Deliver is a one-word title. And I wanted to make sure that people knew what the book was about by the subtitle. And the key thing there is long game. If you can make quick hits. Even in the infomercial business, you mentioned video, and we got into the infomercial business at Boardroom to the tune of like $300 million franchise. However, it was so interesting because I didn't, I saw it as even that as a long game, and most people in the infomercial business saw it as like get the big hit, find the killer product, burn it out, like roll it out, make as much money as possible, then send the inventory to retail at 20% and just get all the cash you can get. I'm not going to be in a business like that. I'm not saying it's bad, but I want to be in a business for the long haul. I mean, and I've been in a business for the long haul, both at Boardroom and then with Titans Marketing. So that is a fundamental. People in my mastermind, people who work with me, I mean, I have people who are looking for the quick hit, get rich quick. I'm into getting rich slowly. And I have gotten rich slowly. And it hasn't been frustrating. It can be frustrating when you're not getting rich and you've got a lot of bills to pay and all that. But you have to bide your time. And so I think the concept of lifetime value, and we can go deeper if you want after this. And then the third concept that I think about a lot is a variation on the 40-40-20 rule, which is the 40-40-20 rule in direct response says that the success of any direct response marketing campaign depends 40% on the list or the audience, 40% on the offer you make, and 20% on the messaging or the creative. Now that sounds like the creative is half as important as the other two. It's not, but I'll explain that in a minute. But the most important thing is the list. So I made it the 41-39-20 rule. So that I emphasize, and this is all in my book, because it was so important to me to say, look, you could have the best copy in the world and an irresistible offer. And if it goes to an audience that's not interested, not doesn't have a propensity to buy, you get 0 orders.
Yep.
The opposite is not true. The opposite is like if you have a perfectly segmented list of people who are so geared to buy your product, and you have a mediocre offer, a flashing red box with an arrow, and you've got the worst copy in the world, you'll make some money. You'll get a few orders at least. The key is to put all those three, it's a three-legged stool. And you need to put all three things into it at the same time, but you need to do them in order. You got to get the list dialed in, your irresistible offer, and then you go to the creative and the messaging. Now, I teased it, and I said the messaging being 20% and the other two being 41-39 or 40 each makes it sound like the messaging is half as important. It's not. It's the least important until it's not. And what I mean by that is once you have the first two dialed in, the messaging and the creative becomes the most important. And I can prove it because going back to my copywriters, when I work with the best copywriters in the world, I'm not bragging. I did it. So I have to say it because I did it. It's not bragging if you did it, by the way. So the thing is, like, if I went to the best copywriters in the world and asked, write a new promotion for this product to this list, and it was a new format or a new copy platform, a new approach, that's where I got my biggest lifts. Like I got some lifts on the offer, changing the price, changing the premiums, whatever. But when it came to the biggest lifts, it was always on the creative. But that doesn't mean it went from half as important to the most important. So those are concepts that I live by, I talk about all the time. I probably talked about them at the mastermind, so now you're bored listening to hear them. But I just think it's so imperative that if you have that in your toolkit, then you have the world's your oyster. I mean, Pablo Picasso, his great quote, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. And that's what it's about. Like you got to know the fundamentals so you can break the rule. I'm not saying don't be a rule, be a rule breaker, but know what rules you're breaking before you just make shit up and just do it.
And what's amazing to me is all those things, RFM, recency, frequency, and LTV, lifetime value, and then 40-40-20, 41-39-20 rule. They're all so important. And yet I think most people just look at that 20 rule and like, I want great ads.
Right. They go right to the world-class creative without any, not thinking about the market. That's why Breakthrough Advertising is such an amazing book. And I don't know if your audience knows about Breakthrough Advertising. I happen to be the publisher of it. But it's a book that was written in 1966 by a copywriter by the name of Gene Schwartz, one of the best copywriters who's ever lived. And the book's not about just copywriting and marketing. It's about human behavior. It's about how people behave. And it's amazing that breakthrough advertising is as relevant today as it was in 1966. And I'm not just saying that, but it's because human beings have not changed. And
No.
Gene, who is a copywriter, knew all about it's all about the market. In fact, he talks about being a market maker in the book. He talks about like he's talking about the concept of mass desire in the book. Like mass desire is something that it's not the copywriter's job to create desire in the marketplace. The desire is already there. You just have to find where it is and then go after it with your poetry, basically.
Yes.
But to not do the research, and it's all about research too. Just like the copywriters talk about the research that they do, the best copywriters I ever hired, the first thing they asked me for before they took a project on was for a list history, meaning like, what are the lists that you've mailed successfully, and what are the lists that you've mailed unsuccessfully, and then give me in the case of direct mail back in the day, they had data cards. They wanted to see the data cards on each of those lists to see the profile, and then I would even get them the mailing pieces that got the names on the lists that we were mailing successfully, so they could get into the psyche of the buyer. That's just not research. That's like, and it's not a rabbit hole either. That's like research, real research, on the ground research. Now AI makes that shit a lot easier today. You could do a lot more, using AI to get to it faster. You still have to do it. You have to have the right prompts to get there. And so I think that, the idea that, and you said it, you got me going there when you said, people say, I want to get like the best promotion. I want to get like the splashiest ad and the best offer. That's important. It doesn't come first. It can't come first. The audience is everything. It's like, yeah. So, I mean, it sounds so basic as was talking here, but I just think that it's important to get it out there. And you asked the question, like, I guess you were trying to ask, what are the basics that have stood the test of time?
Well, the fundamentals. It's the fundamentals. I wouldn't call these basic. It's, because it's simple but not easy. Right? And like when you come to offer, it's an irresistible offer. Like we banter that around, and then you get in a room with marketers, they're going to say the irresistible offer, irresistible offer. But then, like you ask someone to define it, and everyone's
get into the weeds, right? It's like what makes the offer? It's the price, it's the premiums, it's it's everything that. I mean, Todd Brown has a great concept. He talks about the big idea, and so he has a great way of coming up with irresistible offers. There are certain people that have dug into that topic, and I'm sure you have too. I haven't as much because I rely on the experts on that. But to just assume that you've got an incredible, it's sort of like with watching Shark Tank, when the entrepreneurs come on and everybody's got the best idea, right?
Yep.
Everybody's got the irresistible offer. And as soon as they start pitching it, it's obvious whether it's irresistible or not. And I always wait for Mark Cuban to say something like, when they say, well, it's a $18 billion business and all I need is this much of it. And Mark Cuban says, I'm out. Because it's like, that's not a reason to come up with an offer. It's like, and that's just one example of how that works. But yeah, I mean, the whole idea of the irresistible offer, it pains me when I see people misuse that term.
I think when you get most businesses, they have no idea what an offer is. And because I talk about this all the time, they're like, well, people buy my stuff. I'm like, because like you had this other stuff done. You had a list, they were hungry, and you had a good enough marketing or good enough referrals. Exactly. And they bought it in spite of your offer, not because.
I mean, Gary Halbert's quote is the best. It's not about a brilliant burger. It's about a hungry audience.
Exactly. Yeah. And
that says it in a nutshell.
But like you said, everything kind of compounds on itself. Now, I want to switch topics a little bit because I think, you're a master of email and of sending it well. We were talking about Tom Ruwich, who does a great job of daily sending.
He's a great email. I actually have learned a lot from him.
Yeah, he's awesome. And let's talk about email. Why do people make the mistake of thinking that they can't email their list regularly? And I think this is across the board because everyone's like, oh, I don't want to disturb them.
Yeah, I mean, I was of that mindset when I got into email marketing very early once I was thinking about leaving boardroom and creating like the Titans marketing brand, I realized I had to, build a list, or what I call my online family. And that's an
Yes.
interesting concept too. It's like, thinking about when you think about your list as your family, it changes things. Because then you're gonna only send them stuff that you're proud of. So that's and sending them more of it. If you're proud of it, why not send more? I did not. I was not. I mean, Ben Settle, who's like one of the best email marketers, and Tom is like this too. I mean, they send at least. I mean, Ben sometimes sends 2 emails a day, especially if he's promoting something,
Hmm.
and you know, he has created a list of buyers because of that. I've created a list of tire kickers, but really involved tire kickers, which I find exciting for me because they are engaged. And so when I look at Ben, and Ben does, he did an email once about open rates being overrated, and they are overrated because it's all about the engagement with your audience. And if you're going to like be a pussy and just hit everybody with an autoresponder every time they respond to your email, good luck with that. I mean, you can still make money, but I want to have a relationship with my audience. Now, I was only doing one email a week for the first, I don't know, 6 7 years. I was doing, but I did one every week. I mean, I was like, I was consistent. So consistency is number one. It's not the volume for, it's not multiple emailing, but it's that you have to be consistent. And I got it down to like every Sunday at 6 a.m. Eastern time. If you're a part of my online family, you get my blog.
Mm.
And that alone makes it so. I mean, and I'm not bragging here, but and open rates are not really accurate these days with iOS and all that. But I will say that the numbers, whatever the numbers I get, I do an email on every Sunday morning, and then I send another email the following Friday, the same email with a different subject line to the people who didn't open the Sunday email. Those two emails alone, I get over a 70% open rate. Now it might be a 55% open rate, but it's always the same every week. And if it goes down a couple of percentage points, I get nervous because the consistency is so perfect. I'm looking for consistency, not a number here. And so when I realized that I'm not mailing them enough, and Ben used to read me the Riot Act all the time. He said, "Brian, you're mailing them once a week. Come on, they want to hear from you." Now I wanted to make sure, though. I think doing it the way I did it, better, worse, I don't know. But I think I established that baseline of Sunday morning, 6 a.m., you're getting content. Always getting content, a story, a lesson, something from my career. I repeat them, not often, but I repeat them year to year, which is fine. You update them, all of that. But I do think that, and then if I want to sell something, I always sell it in the PS. Now, I may refer to it in the post, but the post, I have a mission. I want to teach a lesson. I want them to learn something. I want to learn something from them if they engage with me, because I asked them to engage with me. That's another thing. You got to encourage your audience to engage with you.
Mm.
So, but the PS, the selling in the PS is, I don't recommend it necessarily because I think it has taught my list not to buy to some degree. But then again, when I put out I do a boot camp or I do a promotion for my mastermind, I get people to buy, not in the way that Ben probably does and a lot of other people who email more frequently, but I'm more comfortable emailing multiple times a week now too. And then I had a podcast for a while, and I did that on Wednesday. I did a transcript and a video of that podcast as another post to the same list. So I think to answer your question, people should not be afraid to email their online families on a regular basis as long as you're leading with value. Now, does that mean you can't sell? Of course not. You should be selling all the time. And Ben, if you follow, I mean, Ben Settle and Tom Ruwich are two guys, and there are many more I follow. I could give you a bunch more. But those are two in particular that you want to follow because you can see the pattern. You never know what to expect. You always know at the bottom of their email that Tom is going to have an offer and that Ben is going to have an offer to email players because that's his core business, his print newsletter. So, and now he's promoting my boot camp. I just got an email from him today, and it's email players slash boot, breakthrough advertising boot camp, and he's got an offer that just compounds what the offer is to go to the boot camp because that's what affiliates do, right? But he's got it dialed in. I don't have that dialed in, so I'm not going to be the guy that's going to give everybody on this, listening to me on this podcast, the best advice. I know what to do. I know how I know when I see it and it's done well, Ben and Tom. So I can do some of that. But the key for me and for them too, and for anybody who's emailing, whether you're mailing once a week and more, less than once a week is silly. Less than once a week, you're not going to develop the continuity and the consistency. But even if you're mailing once a week or you're mailing 6 times a week, lead with value, lead with the customer. It's the same thing. It's the list, right? It's the list, stupid. It's not your offer. It's not your brilliant copy. Although the copy, if you're telling a story and it's narrative, yeah, you want to be entertaining. You want to be, email, like any copy, is like you need to go, the purpose of every sentence is to go on to the next sentence. I know that sounds silly, but that's what it's all about. So being compelling, but when being compelling means get into their head as much as, and doing research on your list. And the only way to do research is to survey them, to get into their mind. And when they, and here's the key, when they email you off your emails, read every email. I learned so much by the language they use, by the way they want to share with me what my list is thinking, what my online family is thinking. And that generates all new ideas. I mean, Ben has this way, and Tom does this too. They take the emails they get from their audience and turn them into new emails. Sometimes they read them the riot act. If it's a stupid email, Ben will tell you it's stupid, and he won't call them out by name, but he'll read them. But that's his style, and that's just a writing style, and he's fine having anybody unsubscribe anytime. I am too, for that matter. You don't want people who are troublemakers and who are going to just troll you on your list all the time.
No.
But people engaging is not trolling, and you want to give them the respect. So those are some of the things. But basically your question was the idea of being afraid to multiple email. It's crazy, and it was crazy for me. I experienced it. I said, but I knew I had to do at least once a week, and that's a minimum. That's a minimum. And now I'm doing more than once a week, and I'm certainly not doing worse, and I'm definitely doing better. But I don't sell all the time, so I'm not the best barometer of like success rate. But my email, my email list is worth millions to me.
Yeah.
Over time.
Over time. But when you talk about you're not getting like tons of money, tons of success, like every email is a sale. But what are some, like, especially recently, I feel like with AI, we're looking at content completely different. So how has your conversation with your online family changed in the age of AI?
It's a good question. So I did an email that I was really proud of. I did one where I basically led with, because I basically always said I don't use AI at all when I write my Sunday blog. And then I said in one email, I said, I have this topic that I've talked about before. I wanted to see what AI would do with it. And I asked AI a complicated prompt, a couple of complicated prompts. Basically, I fed the previous blog post in. I said, and I was transparent with my list. When I led with this, I said, I'm going to do an AI experiment with you, and I want your feedback. So basically, and the prompt was sort of leading to, I want to create new lessons from this blog post without repeating the old ones, or at least only using the previous ones as a base or a foundation, and come up with some new ideas from the blog post. And it did an okay job, you know. And then I commented within. So it was something I learned from a guy, Sean Stevenson, who was a great friend. He used to teach speakers. He died suddenly, which was horrible. But he did a live event once, and basically he was teaching people how to create a $10,000 speech, and he basically did it in real time for himself. Like he was on stage, and this is before AI, so he was like saying he would talk about something, and then he would say, "Stop! Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm going to do next." And he would it was almost like it was like reading a play of what he was doing with all of the stage directions, and he did it in a way that you could follow it. Like when I'm doing narrative, when I'm doing instruction, and it was phenomenal. I tried to imitate that a little bit with this AI post that I did. I didn't do a great job in terms of what he did, but it was a great experiment, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again and again and again. So basically, I want to love AI. I want to hug AI. I want to incorporate AI. I don't want to make it my savior. We have a guy coming on to Titans Accelerator. You're in my mastermind,
Yep.
Titans Accelerator, which is a virtual mastermind. We have 30 live calls a year with guest speakers and hot seats and all of that. And we have a guy coming on this Thursday who is the perfect AI guy, because he's not because he talks about AI in terms of three things. He says is it a savior, is it a threat, or is it a tool? And basically it's all three.
Yeah.
But to not get all hyped up about any one of those things, although if you're going to get hyped up about it, get hyped up about it as a tool. But to get hyped up about it as a savior, or to get hyped up about it as a threat, will drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Because you could go down that's a real rabbit hole. You'll go down a rabbit hole that you'll never get out of, and you'll get depressed too if you go for the tragedy scenario, right? If you go for the Pollyannish scenario of like everything is peachy with this shit, you'll also go crazy, because then you'll make it the answer to everything. Now, of course, there are some people that are doing that successfully. Like a lot of them, you know, they use it they use the threat factor as their thesis to show how not to make it a threat. That's valid. They can use it as as the savior within reason. Some people use it without reason, but that's okay too. I mean, I think as I said, you have to love it before you can hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think also that, you know, the whole and I'm not the first to say this. I'm probably the 100,000th person to say this, but you know, there is like a human need out there, and it's happening everywhere. You know, you talk about the loneliness of men in America in particular.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people need human connection.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that if you let AI take that away, we're taking away our lives there.
Yeah.
I'm not doing a lecture here on AI, so I'm not an expert, but I do think that I want to ignore it is stupid. To make it your entire business, I think, is stupid. I mean, certain businesses should make it their whole business if they can automate their business. But we've had speakers at Titans Accelerator who basically come on. One guy had AI agents doing everything in his business. And after he talked about it, he said, the AI agents are scaring me. You know, they're doing stuff that I didn't ask them to do. And so I'm not recommending this for everybody here. But it's coming. It's coming where it's only going to get better over time. And so you want to be prepared at each step. Do you need to be at the cutting edge on everything? I don't think so. Some people think you do. Even in people who do what I do, you know, who teach direct response marketing, think you have to know everything about, Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and how each one interacts with each other and all that shit, not for me. That's
Yeah.
something I don't do well, and I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to do it. But having people around me, like the guy who's going to speak this Thursday, like I want to surround myself with people who know more than me in everything, and AI is no exception.
Yeah. No, it's one. I think you made a good point about the loneliness, and when if you put too much AI content, I think once you put the AI content out there, you can betray your list, your online family, right? And that leads to more loneliness. It's like, oh, now he's letting the AI talk for him, and
Yeah,
and
I had one where I was doing these Wednesday emails, which were summaries of the Titans Accelerator calls from the week before, and my marketing partner Chris did them all in ChatGPT or Claude, I forget, and he would send me the draft because it wasn't my Sunday blog, which I basically promised that it would never be done with AI. Although when I use AI, I'm just transparent about it. And so, and that's just a principle for me. Not everybody needs to follow that.
yeah,
That's just how I work. But so the Wednesday email started being all AI, and then with my edits, and even with my edits, I got multiple emails from my online family telling me, said, "Is this you?" Like really? I mean, people I kind of knew through correspondence, and one of the emails actually came from a copywriter who I've worked with for 25 years, who knows me like a book, who knew it wasn't me.
yeah,
Like, even though I made changes that were all me, like with my sense of humor, with my sarcasm and all of that, but they were only parts. They were like sporadic in the email. The email was basically written by AI, and so was that a lesson for me? No, I mean I would do it again because it was easier to do. It was faster. I didn't need to be as meticulous with the Wednesday emails as I am with the Sunday emails. That's a decision. I could have made the
yeah,
decision that the Wednesday emails had to be all me 100% too. I made the decision that I don't have the time for that. And that's where AI becomes, again, a tool not to abuse. It can be a savior because you get another email out during the week without the same effort. And it might still be, it should be effective still. It should deliver value. It's got all the same things that it needs to have, right? But
yeah,
I I guess I didn't see any big damage to my reputation. If I did, and I saw people were unsubscribing in droves right after that email, I would have taken notice. But my open rates haven't changed, the engagement rates haven't changed. And in fact, I used it as an engagement that I then spoke about in the next email. Like I said, if you read my Wednesday email, you'd know that, it might not be all me. And then one of my readers told me about it. So it became a topic to talk about. So as long, it's like no harm, no foul, right? I guess. But you have to watch it closely. You have to watch your numbers. You have to see if it's affecting your audience. Your audience is everything. If they get bored with you and they leave you, that's not good as long as you don't want them to leave. Some people are worth leaving. The trolls, go. Goodbye. So, I mean, that's my take on it, I think.
I it's such an important topic and a subtle topic, and the point being is you need to email your list and you need to care about them, and I think this is important for everyone, and because they're like, well, not in my business. I'm like,
Anybody who says not my business, not in my business, read them, especially if it's someone you can tell the truth to. Tell them, shut the fuck up. I don't know if I could curse on this podcast. I don't know if this is a G-rated podcast. But what I mean by that is like when someone's on a hot seat and they say, that doesn't apply to my business, like I want to say, shut the F up and listen. You have the rest of your life to reject this idea. Why do it now when you're in the middle of a hot seat? Like, it makes no sense. But people do that all the time. They hear something and they say, doesn't apply to me, and they shut down. If you're in a room or in a podcast or whatever, but even in a room with great marketers and people who know what they're talking about, and you dismiss something, and that was a great line, Ian, because it was like, you know, not in my business. Man, it's like everything is your business.
Yeah.
Like when someone is on a hot seat, before they even begin the hot seat, I always lead with, keep in mind this business might have nothing to do with your business, but it might have everything to do with your business in terms of what the challenge is, how they're looking at it, the questions that they're asking, and then the stuff that comes up in the discussion. Get something out of it. Don't just dismiss it, especially if you're in the right room. You know, being in the right room is everything. It's sort of like, again, making sure the list is dialed in, right? You don't
Yeah.
want to be in a room of like idiots who can't help you or you can't help them. So yeah, I think that's really critical. That was a great thing you pulled out there. I like that.
I hear it so much. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, are you emailing lists? Oh no, like you're in.
Tried that and it didn't work. How about that one?
Yeah, we tried that. It didn't work, and then I'll go post 1,000 posts to LinkedIn that like a few people will see that you don't know. You can't control at all who sees them.
Right.
But to your point, you can control the list. You can control who sees it. You can send it to them again in a different way, and then you can monitor everything. And people always ask me like, "Well, Ian, how do I get more traffic to my YouTube videos?" And I'm like, "Here's my secret traffic hack: you send them to people." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Have you emailed any of these videos to anyone?" They're like, "No." I'm like,
Yeah. And that'll be $10,000 for that piece of advice.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's and like you're saying, people will if you get the right information and you get good at talking to them and listening to them and making your online family. And it's something I want to work on more, and I forget so often. And it was great hearing from you. It's like, and I sent it to my list, and I got such a great response. I'm like, oh, because it's the only thing. And going forward, like, I think we're entering an age where AI is just talking to AI on social media,
Yeah.
and so like LinkedIn has become kind of a dumpster fire of just AI back and forth, AI posts and AI commenters. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's the one place that you can, besides texting, that which kind of falls in the same camp, get in front of people. But to your point, you've got to listen and you got to be around smart
Yes.
people. And so you all should remember BrianKurtz.net. We'll put a link to in the show note. Get on his list and let's see
Become a
great
member
email.
of my online family. I just want to mention one thing. You maybe thought of something else. I wrote a blog post that the subject line was "The last 10% is everything," and you can glean what I was getting at just by the subject line. But basically, my thesis was that I will, till the day I die, I will believe that no matter how much AI takes away our personalities, takes away, writes copy for us, becomes our own, clone, whatever. It's that last 10% that you're human. You're a human being. You'll always be a human being. You'll always be unique. And this sounds like a pep talk for people who are thinking about. I get a lot of emails from copywriters who are giving up. I
Yeah.
can't compete with AI. Claude can write copy better than I can. Chances are you shouldn't have been a copywriter then, but that's okay. um, but I think that it's so it sounds like the last 10% of everything. I admitted that it sounds like I'm just trying to justify my existence, right? It's like I'm going to justify the fact that I'm a human being, I'm unique, and no one's going to take that away from me, and therefore I'll always be relevant. That might not be true, even in my lifetime. And my lifetime isn't, I don't have as many years left as most of your listeners probably. On the other hand, why live into like I'm going to be taken over by a bot? You
Yeah.
might, but like why resign yourself to that when you can still have the power? You said, you have the power. You own you own the platform, not necessarily the email service provider, but you own your platform much more than you do on Facebook or Instagram on email, you own the platform, your own platform. You own your own online family. So,
Yeah.
like, why would you throw your hands up at any time, even if it gets frustrating? So that was the whole concept of the last 10% is everything. Was kind of, I guess it was a little bit of a pep talk to people, justifying my own existence, but trying to help people justify each of their individual existences because we're all individuals, and that was my premise. And I think it's I know it's valid, whether it's true or not forever, I can't say. But I'm not going through life thinking that being a bot would be better than being me.
Well, it's, not to get metaphysical or whatever, but I mean, if you really think about AI and the ultimate, what it can be, it doesn't have true experience. It has online experience. It has like that.
It has everything that's ever been put on the internet.
Has everything that's been put on the internet, which most experts' experience isn't put on the internet. Right?
I mean, a lot of it is because we tell stories, but even when AI pulls a story from because I have a personal bot that one of my members built for me, one of my Titans Accelerator members built for me, and even though she loaded up all of my blog posts with all of my stories, so when I go to that bot, that GPT that she built for me, and I ask for like some examples of this concept, it doesn't pull all my stories.
No,
It doesn't pull the right story even usually.
it
So that's
doesn't.
the other thing. It's like the right story for the right email for the right time at the right moment. That's a decision that I think, not that there are any shoulds in the world, but you should make that yourself,
Yeah,
and you'll be more satisfied with it in the end.
and it forces you to think about everything that's going on, and I
Yep.
think at that moment, and that's another thing that AI isn't thinking about. It's thinking about, well, let me
It's
get
just
all
things
this
about
information.
output. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
output.
information output. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is fantastic. So, Brian, we'll put a link to the show notes and also your amazing book, Over Deliver.
Yeah, so that would be another way to connect with me, although it could cost you like a $7 Kindle or a $20 book. Whereas signing up for my online family doesn't cost you anything, and I'm not going to force you to ever buy anything from me. But if you go to overdeliverbook.com, I'll make it worth your while if you buy my book because the bonuses for for the book, you write a book called Over Deliver, you better over deliver on the bonuses. So there are 11 amazing bonuses. I'll just give you a couple of them. One of them is like 19 keynote speeches that Jay Abraham has given over his career.
Wow.
Jay Abraham wrote the forward to my book. He's a mentor of mine. He's a legendary. If I'm not a legend, he is. There's a swipe file from Dan Kennedy. Hopefully, people have heard of him, where he co-hosted an event with me in 2014. He did a swipe file just for that event, and the PDF of that swipe file is one of the bonuses. I've got two books that are out of print by my two major mentors in direct mail. And people will say, "Oh, direct. We didn't get into direct mail today. That was the interview from 10 years ago. But we could have talked about direct mail today because it's still relevant." And there are two books, PDFs of two books by Dick Benson and Gordon Grossman, out of print. But I've got the full PDFs of both of their books, and they're masterpieces about direct mail. And don't think that war stories about the trenches of direct mail in the 1960s to the 1990s don't apply to online marketing today. They do. So that's two of the bonuses, the two books. So it's just an amazing, and so basically what I'm saying is that the bonuses are worth a lot more than my book. So
It's an amazing book. I talk to everyone about it. I think it's one of those fundamental books that
well,
if
thank you,
you're
thank
if
you.
you're doing
Coming from you, that means a lot because you're a marketing fundamentalist who's also in the state of the art of video and podcasting and things that I'm not an expert in at all. And so for you to say that means a lot. It really does.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's a classic, and there's so many like RFM, all these ideas that are so important that I think everyone just discounts, but it's the fundamentals. And so we'll put a link to that in the show notes, and it's a bargain. And if you really want, if you're really invested in your marketing, you're spending a few $1,000s a month, even. You need to become a student in marketing, and this is fantastic information.
As I
Brian,
said,
thanks so
until
much.
the day I die.
Thank you so much for being on. This has been fantastic.
It's been great, Ian.
And thank you all for making Brian and I part of your journey, part of your story. This has been Ian Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.